Okay, Mike, we are live on Facebook. You have been beating this horse, preaching to this choir, and I'm tired of it.
You would be.
Tell the people, what is pissing you off about this puff piece that was in Forbes about this bullshit Sotol?
First of all, good evening for those of you who are still awake. We are camped in Albuquerque, New Mexico, actually Bernalillo, New Mexico. New Mexico, I spent 13, 14, 15 years living here, and it was the first state where I was exposed to Sotol. And I was exposed to Sotol by the Jaques family. They're very, for those of you who follow Sotol and agave spirits, you're familiar with them. They make Don Cuco Sotol. They also make Por Siempre, which has been very, very popular in the last 2-3 years. And they have struggled for a long time. But there's an upstart brand out there that we have solicited samples for. Their distillery is known as Desert Door, and they're based out of Texas, primarily Austin. And it seems that Forbes has made them out to be great entrepreneurs concerning a spirit that they feel that historically should belong to Texas. Anybody who follows Sotol and who knows the history of Sotol understands that Sotol that is distilled in Chihuahua, Durango, and one other state that escapes me right now. Primarily, the first family that was allowed to have a permit to produce Sotol commercially is the Jaques family. And for those of you who aren't aware who they are, you can read about Jacqueline Jaques, who is the CEO of Don Cuco Sotol, and she goes into very much about her family history and Sotol. Sotol has a great history in New Mexico, Texas, and of course Mexico. There's something to be said about distilling something that is traditionally has a denomination of origin, first of all, in Chihuahua, Durango, and other parts of Mexico. And you really can't culturally appropriate something that doesn't belong to you. It's one thing to reverently give an ode or there's a word that escapes me right now, but to give reverence and credibility and credence to a Mexican distillate, and to produce something in your own way with the blessings of the families who have started and who have been struggling to bring Sotol to the market in the United States. As far as I'm concerned, there's really only one in Texas that has done that properly. It is Genius Gin. They make a bourbon, they make a gin, they also make a Texas Sotol, and have. When the gentleman that I'm speaking of, the distiller is and his partners, but the distiller is Mark Gruen. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. But we went up and visited him in Austin. And we interviewed him, and he was very careful about his research. He had talked to all the distilling families of Sotol. He wanted to make sure that his batch, even though he was using a Sotol that was grown in Texas, which is a different genus, he wanted to make sure that he gave the right credit and was doing it the right way and did his research. He did his footwork. And when we tasted his spirit, it was amazing, and you couldn't keep it on the shelves. It sold out immediately.
So what makes you think these other guys aren't doing it properly?
I'm not sure.
Is there a Pope of Sotol that must bless these things?
No, not really. But then again, Sotol has a denomination of origin. It's like making an American mezcal. It's like making an agave spirit. There is a company out in India that has been making Indian agave spirit for a long time, and they have been very careful. Desmond Nazareth has been doing wonderful things in India with agave Americana and making very sure that he credited, making sure not calling it tequila. He was crediting that Mexico has its own denomination of origin. He was just making an agave spirit. And he's been very, very clear for at least 5 years. And now there's an exciting spirit that he's partnered with Martin Grassel that is coming out onto the American market. But you know, they're very clear about what they're doing. They are not appropriating something. They are trying to improve on something and making something different that they owe tequila and or mezcal for the inspiration.
So you're saying that somebody calling something a Texas Sotol would be just like calling something a Texas tequila?
Well, you can't do that. You can't do that because
you can't. Right, you can't do it with tequila.
Right.
But so is there some law protecting the Sotol spirit?
Well, according to the Forbes article, it is not so heavily policed. In other words, if they were trying to call this a Texas tequila, you can bet that the Consejo Regulador de Tequila would be on top of them like white on rice. But the Sotol Regulatory Council is still in its infancy, very much like the Mezcal Regulatory Council. They don't have the bucks, they don't have the money, they don't have the people to police this. So they kind of try and let it slide, they try to ignore it. But that doesn't excuse the guys from Texas from culturally appropriating something. Now, let me tell you, first of all, I haven't tasted their stuff. I don't know what it tastes like. I've asked for samples. We hope to have them on our Sipping Off the Cuff program. And if it's a worthy product, then yes, we can say that this is something that you should look for. But to say that historically, it's something that belongs to Texas, I'm not too sure about that. Because we who have studied Sotol, Mexican Sotol, understand what the historical ramifications are and what has happened during Prohibition when Sotol was processed in Mexico. Now, I don't know how well they've done their research, but I know a family who is the first permit that was allowed by the Mexican government to produce Sotol, and that says a lot. So
do you think that this Forbes piece was perhaps just a PR company gone a little amok?
It could be a little bit more fluff than based on historical fact. They kind of touch on the idea of cultural appropriation, but that piece was not made to tackle those serious issues, okay? It was meant to shine a light on what these guys are doing, and God bless them, they're doing a great job. They're entrepreneurs, they're inspired, but I think they should give credit where credit is due, and that's all I'm saying. Give credit where credit is due, and give it its reverence, and give it what it needs to, so that instead of making an enemy in this industry of agave spirits, you make a friend. And hopefully they'll see that. I know that they've got some great funding. They're opening up their distillery for tours. I think that's great. First of all, I have to tell you that if they're going to say that Texas needs to have its own spirit, I would venture to say that Tito's Vodka would tell you that they're the first spirit that Texas should have, because that's what they've been billed as for a long time. So anyway, it's just something to think about, something to look at, something to question. As anything else, the proof is in the pudding. I hope that we acquire samples. I hope that we have them on Sipping Off the Cuff, and then, let's see what it tastes like. Let's see what the juice tells you.
Let's open the discussion here. Leave your comments below. What do you think about Texas Sotol or Tennessee Sotol or anybody else taking on Sotol? Is that a denomination of origin that needs to be honored? Is there appropriate protocols that everyone should know about? Let's open this up for discussion. What do you all think? And tell us your thoughts. Check out the piece on Forbes, and check out the Tequila Aficionado articles and videos on Mike Green's Texas Sotol, and tell us what you think.